face the possibility of decades in prison. Let's bring in Anahita Sedaghatfar. She's a lawyer who works in both the state and federal court systems. These two women turned themselves in, or didn't turn themselves in, but went to police very quickly. That tends to be damning for the suspects.
Yeah, it bolsters the prosecution case, and it's not looking good for this couple. I mean, when you have these crimes allegedly on tape, I would, venture to say that that's pretty good evidence of guilt. And the fact that both of these women immediately went to the police after they alleged they were raped, the police found drugs in the system of at least one of these women. I think that's a good argument that the prosecution is going to make, that these two defendants drugged and raped these women.
Talking about a doctor that he had access to drugs, knew dosages to give, and so forth. These videotapes, and the police say there are lots of these videotapes on iPhones. Presumably they're pretty clear, right? Pretty clear. They may have audio. We don't really know yet. The question becomes, is it hard to prove if somebody is incapacitated by just looking at videotapes?
That's a good argument. That's what the defense is going to argue, that you can't tell what's going on in these videotapes. Were these women consenting? Were they not? I would venture to say that's a difficult argument to make when you have hundreds and thousands, which is what we're hearing from the authorities, Trace. And moreover, none of those other allegations come into this criminal case. This case involves these two women, and these two women are saying, we didn't consent, we were drugged and raped.
Yeah, and what happens if, because it's a good-looking couple, I mean, he's a doctor, she's a teacher. What happens if they go through these videos and they find somebody who says, no, I consented, I was willing?
The prosecution is going to say that evidence should not come in. This has nothing to do with whether or not any of these other women consented. It only has to do with these two women that are part of this case. And you brought up a good point. This is a doctor, this is a surgeon, Trace, and so he arguably had access to tons of medication, tons of anesthesia, and we know, thankfully, the medical board is looking into him. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see additional charges. Could it be he sexually assaulted some of his patients while he drugged them in his office?
So this goes much deeper. This is not just, I mean, the videotapes, do they play them all in court, or only certain ones allowed to be played in court? Is it just the victims' videotapes?
Yes. If I'm the state, I want only these victims, because like you said, you don't want any argument made by the defense that some of these women don't look like they're drugged up. They don't look like they weren't, consenting to this sex. It's going to be ultimately up to the judge what is probative and what is not, and I think the judge will only let in videotapes of these two victims. Now, if more victims are added to the complaint, arguably those videos can come in as well.
And Orange County says they're getting a bunch of calls. So they're
over a dozen. The police are still investigating. This is far from over. Again, the police chief said that he saw thousands of videos on this man's phone. So look, the statute of limitations, we don't have that anymore in the state of California if these rapes occurred after 2017. So they have all the time to go ahead and add additional claims.
Anahita Sedaghatfar, great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Well, ahead,